Good morning and welcome to this interview with Indica Nilima ji. Just a quick introduction for our viewers. Nilima Bhat ji is an expert in leadership, organizational culture, conscious business, and self-awareness for a work-life balance based on Indic wisdom. She's also an advocate of gender equity and women in leadership. It's such a pleasure to be speaking to you today, Nilima ji. I know it's been a busy day and you're probably tired, but thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Aparna. It's just a delight to see an Indian face halfway around the world. I've been missing home. I got here to Mexico exactly just about a month ago. So,
how is it there, Nilima ji? I mean, are there any similarities you say you're missing? I mean, I'm sure there's some civilizational similarities with Mexico.
what is so interesting is it feels exactly like India, the flora, the fauna, the weather, and the people also look very similar. They have the dark skin, the black hair, and yet it's a different world altogether. And I think what's common is the solar civilization, which I've always been fascinated by, right? They have always worshipped the sun. They have the pyramids and aligned with the solar movements. And someone was sending me a link to stories that there are some connection between India and Mexico in the subtle planes. There's supposed to be some sort of a portal that goes through the center of the earth and connects the two, because we are like at polar opposites, on the planet. We're at different ends of the planet, literally. So something is there, and that must be one reason why I've been brought so far away from Matrabhumi.
What are your roots in Pondicherry, Nilima ji? And does that have some bearing on how you're feeling now? As Mother and Sri Aurobindo envisioned a world, a community borderless, without boundaries, without ownership. So, what part did that play in your life, their influence?
I love the question. It's so hard to even begin describe something so profound and so precious and just so beyond the ordinary, right? That the masters are. My father was a naval officer, and well before I was born,
I have to tell you, Nilima, sorry to interrupt, but my father was also a naval officer.
Really?
That's such
I'm getting goosebumps.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry to interrupt. Please.
No. So his ship went to Pondicherry when it was still a French colony, and it was an amicable handover. So as a matter of calling on the ashram, they wanted to send some officers to go and pay their respects to the mother. And she apparently said, it's time for me to play tennis. So send me a tennis player and I will meet them on the tennis courts. And my father was one of the two who played tennis and on board. So he got the rare and profound privilege to play tennis with the mother. And after that, he met my mom, and then they got married, and then I was born. And I was born in 1966, and in 1974, he got posted to Germany to build a ship for the Indian Navy called INS Shakti. So I think my journey with Shakti began way back, and you can see the way the dots join. You can look back in life and then see the hand of grace right through. So I became a very global citizen from a very early age. I had to go to a German school and get by in fluent German. That's the only way, you could be there as a kid. We came back and I went to St. Xavier's College in Mumbai, which is another very, multi racial, multicultural kind of place. Being from the Navy itself made me a very multicultural person. You never identify from which state you are. You just say you're Indian, and that's your identity. And my father married a Maharashtrian woman, my mom. So he's from Orissa and she's from Maharashtra. So right there was like an interstate marriage back in the 60s. So little by little, I found my way to Mother and Sri Aurobindo when I had an existential crisis about who am I and what am I doing with my life. And I was 32 and I came in search of meaning and purpose. I started studying yoga and Vedanta, and then I discovered Mother. And then I remembered that my father had met her and played tennis with her. So it's like, you just wonder at these synchronicities, right? And I came home to her. I came home to Sri Aurobindo's thought. Everything they say resonates so deeply. And that, that we are a transitional species, we are a work in progress. This is not the final rung of the evolutionary ladder. There is a new human that's going to appear on the scene, and it's going to be a unitive consciousness based on truth, and there will be this incredible synergy, and each one will live their life based on freedom and surrender to their deepest, highest self, which is the Divine Mother within each of us. And then the more we are tuned into that guidance and behavior from that guidance, the more we will just learn to be in symphony with each other. And that's how, unity and unity in consciousness and human unity will get worked out on this planet. So everything I do, you're so right, is about moving towards that.
So was your corporate career before this or during or after? And how did that influence your latter journey?
So I did have a corporate career with ITC, Welcome Group. I was with Windsor Manor, my first job. And then I joined Philips All India to look after corporate communications, public relations for them. And then when my husband moved to Singapore, I joined ESPN Star Sports to look after corp comms across Asia Pacific. And so it just was like this very quick growth curve, actually, from PR for a hotel in a city to PR for a multinational in India, and then to PR for Asia Pacific, right? So it was super fast. And in 10 years, I just kind of hit this existential questioning that I'm earning a lot of money and I'm not sure I'm actually living my purpose. And one of the things that also is part of the history is that my mom had met some Jyotish before I was born. And she had been told a bunch of things, all of which came to pass. And one of the things she was told is she'll have 2 children, and the younger one has to do some work in the world that is going to make a difference. And then I remember thinking at 32 in my corporate career, okay, Asia Pacific, but I'm not sure the difference that was meant to be made, because it didn't feel meaningful enough for me. My soul was already waking up at that time, and I longed for meaning and purpose and a sense of coming alive, a sense of making a real difference, in a way that really mattered, making the world a better place, right? So that's where the corporate life ended. And I took up the study of all these different paths. And I qualified as a Shivananda yoga teacher, and of course came to Mother and Sri Aurobindo. And along the way, my husband got diagnosed with colon cancer when he was 40. And that is when the journey became about holistic health and integrative medicine as well, drawing from Chinese medicine principles and integral yoga principles and so on. So I left full-time corporate work in the year 1998, And it's interesting how the journey went through, all this, my husband's recovery, the writing of the book, My Cancer Is Me, teaching the world this holistic and integrative approach to healing through chronic lifestyle diseases such as cancer. And then writing Shakti Leadership, embracing feminine and masculine power in business. So creating a new leadership model for a world that works for all with my colleague, Professor Raj Sisodia. And then it's been 7 years since the book came out, and it's become a global movement very organically. Clearly, it's the mother. She named the book, she's moving it, and I just watch in awe at how it unfolds. And it's just the extent of my ability to surrender that determines the ease and grace and level of, the good that's coming from this.
Lovely. So
and
how
it's
is
25 years. It's 25 years, I realized, since I left full-time corporate work, and now I have joined a full-time job, which is, I've come to Mexico. I've been invited to join their Faculty of Excellence program. It's one of the best-known universities of Mexico called Tec de Monterrey, Tecnológico de Monterrey. And they want to bring thought leaders from around the world so that Mexicans don't have to go abroad for high quality education, because the world is coming to Mexico. And what the offer they're making people like me, it's saying, you have a mission and a purpose in the world, and you're going to need an organization backing you to do so. And you have legacy projects, and let us help you leave your legacy, right? So that is why I'm here. I've come on a 3-year contract as Distinguished Professor in Gender and Conscious Leadership. And my role straddles the business school and the School of Humanities and Education.
Wonderful. And you also talk about biological intelligence and spiritual intelligence. So are the two necessarily different? And how do you bring that into a business school? Is that something like that students, I have seen in medical schools in India, in the first year they're introduced to yoga and Ayurveda, and the students attend it because they have to, but don't want to actually imbibe any of it. So how do we get people to actually love these kind of this kind of education, and not just tick the box, because the management of a college, is wants to incorporate it into their syllabus?
That's a great question. I've always said, I only want to go where I am both needed and wanted. Very often, a place needs what you have to offer, but they don't necessarily want it, right? So you have to search for fertile soil. And there is the famous Christian saying, right? Don't cast your pearl before swine, or don't cast your seed on barren ground, right? So it's something I learned along the way as we set up this conscious leadership consultancy called Roots and Wings, and we were going into companies to say, let us help your organization become more conscious. And even though we thought we had something really worth gold that we are offering, not everyone was ready for it. And it's the same with educational institutions and students. I think it's different in different parts of the world. And I don't know where India is today. Sometimes, they say ghar ki murgi dal barabar, right? Or the prophet is least known in their own land. Yeah. So in a funny way, it requires me to have come halfway around the world for them to see me sufficiently unique, exotic, alien, different to say, she may have something that we need to be listening to, which is such a delight, because I don't have to be starting from having to make the case for what I'm going to say. They're already primed for it. There's also context is everything, and framing is everything. So the way I am presented in the class as a faculty of excellence, as someone who's coming with deep ancient wisdom from a land called India, which is known for its spiritual wisdom and treasures. And so right there is enough of a curiosity and openness, because it has been framed and presented in the right way to them. And after that, it's really up to me and how I deliver the content and how I engage them. So this university says we are going to experiment and innovate new ways of imparting education. So I said to them, why are you only using IQ? Why not look at also, using all the other intelligences they have to impart the education and learning? So I do body intelligence, BQ, and spiritual intelligence, SQ. So for body intelligence, for example, I had to teach a class on innovation and design thinking. So I called the class Designing for Whole Systems, right? And then I took them through the dance of the 5 elements. And in the dance of the 5 elements, and we danced to A.R. Rahman's music, which is representing each of the element: earth, water, fire, air, and space. And I get them to feel that energy in their body. Earth is the structure of whatever it is you're designing. And water is the processes, and the flexibility that you're designing into the project, right? Then fire is the clarity of thought and, making sure you are testing it for its purity and authenticity, right? And then air is ensouling your idea with love and compassion. And then space is making sure whatever you're innovating has enough space in which it can continue to evolve and grow. So I said, if you're designing innovation, make sure it has all the 5 elements in it, right? And when I take them through that actual movement in their body, and they go through this cycle of ascent and descent, they kind of die to each element to go from sthula to sukshma. And then they take a sankalp, they take an intention of how they want to build back using the same 5 elements in a whole new way, right? So they deconstruct and then they reconstruct. And at the end of it, there is such utter silence in the room, because the 5 elements are elemental. They are elementary. They are foundational. So it's beyond their mental thinking or their emotions even. It is just so visceral that their body knows when it is going through each of those elements, right? So it is transformative, and it's always beautiful to see the before and after, right? Before, they're all standing there looking a little skeptical and, feeling a little stupid, or, feeling a little and, being distracted. But then I just have to trust the power of this framework and the power of the model of the Panchabhuta, and it takes over. It's between them and the 5 elements, and I just have to get out of the way, So that was one way of kind of bringing the 5 elements framework in a very experiential, somatic way, and then to debrief it as a way in which you can apply it to whole systems thinking, to create a systemic solution. Will make sure all 5 elements are represented in it, right? So that's one way. Spiritual intelligence, I teach through what I call the presence practice. So I say to them, you have to learn how to get out of your limited ordinary self in order to tap into the more, the universal self that is also you. And it's also your own higher self. So how do you step back from the head, heart, and the gut? How do you stand in your spine? How do you feel the Shakti flowing through you? And then how do you affirm, I have nothing to defend, I have nothing to promote, I have nothing to fear, I am here now, no? All I need is within me, all I need is coming to me and flowing through me. So the more they start practicing presence, and we use very yoga nidra elements in it. So first you squeeze and release the body, then you go through the even breath, then you clear your mind, then you open your heart, right? So with all these very yogic tools, they are universal tools, and the class just gets it. So it's a combination of these two things. One is that I'm so far away from home that I'm seen sufficiently alien here for them to be curious, right? And then to then teach in a way that is something that speaks directly to them at a very visceral level.
So, in terms of gender itself, Nilima, it's I mean, in this ultra modern age, I mean, there are more than two genders, especially among youngsters. But given our traditional binary definitions, how does the symbiosis of the masculine and feminine, how do you manage that in a classroom environment? I mean, is there any opposition to
Actually,
this?
quite the opposite. Quite the opposite. From the day the book came out, and the subtitle is Embracing Feminine and Masculine Power in Business, I was so surprised that there would be very much the non-binary people in the front rows. And they would be sitting with tears in their eyes as I would talk about the masculine and feminine being in each one of us, regardless of gender, and how we have to express healthy feminine and healthy masculine qualities, right? And that in order to come into your full power, you need to become a whole person. And I show the picture of the Ardhanarishwar, right? So suddenly, actually, they found themselves being represented in Shakti Leadership.
Right.
And my whole point to them is, whether you identify as binary or non-binary, that's not the point. Good for you. You're a free being and you can get to choose. But the real opportunity is to become psychologically whole. And in psychological wholeness is your best opportunity to come into your full power. And then from there, you have all the agency needed to have the outcomes you want from life and leadership, right? So for that, you have to draw from your feminine and your masculine, healthy qualities, traits, behaviors. And if you don't have some of them, then you have to put in the work to practice them and build them in yourself. So on one hand, do you have enough courage? Do you have enough clarity? Do you have enough confidence? That's all the healthy masculine, right? On the other hand, do you have enough compassion? Do you have enough creativity? Do you have enough caring and sharing? That is empathy, all that collaboration, all that is your feminine. So if you only have one and not the other, then actually they're two totally different things here, saying your sexual orientation, your gender identity is for you to figure out. But for you to be a fulfilled and free human being, you need to become psychologically whole. And that's the Ardhanarishwar. And they get it. They get it.
So how did you structure your syllabus? And because there is no ready-made material, or is there, Nilima? And how will we be able to access, like, would you be publishing books based on your this 3 year tenure, so that schools in India could emulate what you're doing, or even get you to deliver it for them in some form or the other?
So first of all, the book has been out 7 years, Shakti Leadership. It's out in Hebrew, in Israel, in Russian, in Russia, in Portuguese, in Brazil, and all over the English-speaking world. And at a minimum, I would encourage any organization, including Indica, just get that book translated and put that out, right? I have already created online self-study courses, blended courses, live taught Zoom courses, video courses for people who can't get me there personally because the cost is high of travel, etc. Right? So I've already created self-learning, self-study, group study courses. You can mastermind it. Just do the course and get certified in Shakti Leadership. and feel confident of the Shakti leadership elements and practices so that you feel like a Shakti leader, right? And yes, I'll be writing my next book with Professor Raj Sisodia, and tentative title is called Healing Leaders. That it's time for leaders to do the inner work of healing their own personal trauma and wounding, because if they don't put in that work on, another title would be Therapy for Leaders, that unless leaders do their own inner work of healing their past, they will bring that to their leadership, and it will block them from the full expression of their leadership, and therefore the impact of their leadership, and it can even have a negative impact on people around them, right? So that book should be out in this 3-year period.
The mother also talks about difficulties in our personal lives and how blocks in our life actually help us to realize the divine power. So, do you think that is necessary to lead a hard life and to have to face difficulties in order to realize this Shakti power?
So the answer, it's such a core part of the Shakti leadership model that we talk about, the hero's journey, that you go through some sort of a crisis which leads to trauma, then you have to face your worst fear. And when you slay that dragon of whatever it is inside you, on the other side of that is your transformation, and there's growth, and then you come back and bring an elixir or a gift to the world, right? So that seems to be the pattern of the old way of evolution. At the same time, Mother has said, we now have the supramental, we now have the grace, we have a new energy available to us, we have the Mother's force available. So we need not have to go through tremendous pain and suffering. So as they say, pain is unavoidable, but suffering is optional, right? So it's really how you frame the experience. It is what it is. But if you say it's a bad thing that's happening, then it'll become a bad thing, right? But if you say, oh, why is this happening for me, instead of why is this happening to me, and then you use it to grow from it, then somehow you will be supported. There's always wind beneath your wings. There's always allies who show up. And even the so-called challengers and challenges are gifts and blessings in disguise. Right?
Thank you so much, Nilima ji. Any last thoughts that you would like to share? What are the things that make you wake up with joy, and when you go to sleep, you think that these are the beautiful experiences of life that everyone should look forward to or seek?
I really feel sometimes I just feel so privileged, right? That I get these downloads of audacious ideas, which are so fun and so fabulous. And then I because they come from this inspired Shakti, then I say, okay, let's go for it. Let's see if I can make it happen. And then it happens, So getting these creative ideas, including the Shakti Kumbh, for example, right? So doing a Shakti tour, for 21st December 2012, taking Ganga waters to Machu Picchu and Titicaca and inseminating the waters from Kailash into Titicaca, like the womb of the planet, and enacting the divine marriage of the Himalayas and the Andes, and saying towards unity consciousness out of polarity conscious, duality consciousness, right? So there are so many such amazing tours around the world, and that have just come from inspired Adesh, that I have said yes to, and then that have come to pass, and how the dots join. But the Kumbh, I think, is one of the most, I've had several peak experiences in life, but I think the Shakti Kumbh, 21 days in Rishikesh, on the banks of the Ganga, at Oro Valley Ashram and at Parmat Niketan, having masters, teachers in all the different traditions related to Shakti and anything to do with the divine feminine, and having these women from all over the world who came and signed up. We even offered an integral yogini TTC, the first of its kind. We have lots of yoga TTCs, but we don't have yogini TTCs, right? So, and then to put it in the frame of integral yoga, and so make it integral yogini, right? Oh my God, it was just so. I think I just wake up every morning feeling that this is a divine Leela that I get to be a part of, and it's all Ananda, and we are here to follow our bliss. And even when there is heartbreak, then you follow the heartbreak, because at the other end of that is also a bliss, right?
Yeah. Thank you so much, Nilima, for this lovely conversation. Yeah, it's been wonderful.
Thank you, Aparna.